How's it going, everyone? It's story time. Story time is the best time because you love stories. Now, this book is by the same author as the prior book, where I read those two strange things, those two strange chapters. It's the same author, but a different book, and it's called Tales of Unexplained Mysteries, which is kind of funny because the prior book was called Tales of Mysteries Unexplained, so she just reversed it or something. Anyway, if you missed last night's live stream, anybody still interested in watching that, I'll post another link below. It was pretty interesting. We did cover a lot of the standard stuff, Mandela affected stuff, because his audience is kind of like his channel is completely unrelated to this stuff, so we kind of have to start from scratch. Essentially, he's kind of just trying to redo his channel. He's do completely different things, so but we did go off the deep end at the end, and we had another just random person come on talking about out of body experiences at the end, which was really interesting. It was pretty good. I enjoyed our discussion a lot. Before that, I want to tell you guys that there are a handful of Mandela effects that people consider to be Mandela effects that to me are not. Um, and here's one example. The Liberty Island and Ellis Island. I know that's a big one for a lot of people. I've been to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island probably 3 or 4 times. The first time was when I was about 6 years old. It was a school field trip. And then I went there with who is my wife today. And then I went there another time during school. So I would say 3 times I've been there. And I do distinctly remember two separate islands, even from the first time at age 6, that we would first take a boat to Ellis Island, and then we took a boat to Liberty Island. So in my reality, I remember two distinct separate islands. The only thing that's kind of hazy for me on that one is that I don't remember Liberty Island being on the New Jersey side of the state because it is technically and officially in New Jersey waters, not in New York waters. I've always thought it was in New York waters. So that one. However, the one that is Mandela affected for me is the torch. I know the torch was always open. We did go inside the Statue of Liberty, and we did get a tour of the interior. So the torch is kind of iffy for me. So this one is about giants and catacombs in the island nation of Malta in the Mediterranean. I'm going to read a little bit of it just to give you an idea. If you don't know about the giants, there's a great free documentary on YouTube I think it's called Land of the Giants. And it's incredibly good. It talks about the cover up that the Smithsonian institution did of that stuff. So you could easily find it on YouTube. I highly recommend it. So let me just read a little bit of this. The small island of Malta in the Mediterranean has long since been an island of great strategic importance, and it was a stronghold of the British Navy during World War II. What most people do not know is that on Malta, mythological creatures exist. At least that is according to archaeologist Graham Stewart, and governments have long known. They are fed humans. When an ancient priest who worshipped Baal came to the island, they practiced the offering of humans to their god of the underworld, who they believed lived under an island. Underground beings demand humans. Well, it is indeed true that in 1902, workers digging a well accidentally discovered a series of excavations which descended into multi level catacombs. It became known as the Hypogeum of Hal Saflienti, and the workmen uncovered long subterranean passages that were said to travel underground for many miles. And when it was revealed that the human skeletons, numbering at least 7,000, were found inside the catacombs, 7,000. In the mid 1930s, a Miss C. Lewis Jessup, the secretary at the British Embassy in Malta, went to explore the subterranean tunnels, and afterwards she wrote to the Borderland Science Journal to tell them of her very strange experience there. Miss Jessup was very curious about the catacombs and very much against the advice of the official tour guide with her. She ventured into a small and less accessible burial chamber in the lower strata of the catacombs. She managed to enter a small and barely accessible entry point on her hands and knees with a candle to light her way. And as she emerged through the hole, she found herself in an enormous chasm. She managed to stand upright on a tiny ledge with a gaping drop beneath her, and it looked very much like a bottomless pit. Opposite her, at a slightly lower level, she noticed a ledge, like the one she was standing on, and it looked to her as though it led to a tunnel. As she was observing it, one after another, a group of very tall figures started to appear on the ledge. There, across the cave, from an opening deep below, emerged 20 persons of giant stature. In a single file, they walked along a narrow ledge. Their height I judged to be about 20 to 25 feet, since their heads came about halfway up to the opposite wall. They walked very slowly, taking long strides. Their covering seemed to be like long white hair, combed downward and shaggy looking. Their heads were oval and elongated at the chin, at the top, and their hair on their heads fell about the shoulders like a drape monk's cowl. Then they all stopped, turned, and raised their heads in my direction. All simultaneously raised their arms and with their hands beckoned me. Terror rooted me to the spot. Then a strong wind came from nowhere and blew my candle out. She fled back through the tiny gap and back to her guide. She did not seem shocked by her obvious state of fear and panic. Indeed, it was almost as though the look he gave her was entirely knowing. I knew he had seen what I had seen at one time. His look also held caution, as though warning her not to speak of what happened, and for many years she did not. Not long after her visit to the catacombs, one of my friends called me to read an item from the Valletta paper. I said, Lois, remember that tunnel you wanted to explore? It says here in the paper that a schoolmaster and 30 students went exploring. They went roped together, and at the end of the rope was tied to the opening of the cave. As the last student turned the corner where your candle blew out, the rope was clean cut, and none of the party was found because the walls caved in. Apparently, the children were never found. Miss Jessup didn't believe the walls collapsing on the children had been a natural accident. She knew what happened to her, and she could only wonder how she had been lucky enough to escape. When Mr. Crab Riley, editor of Journal of the Borderland Research, received her letter, he found her story hard to believe and was inclined to dismiss it as a fantastical tale. That was until he did some research and found in the archives an old copy of National Geographic, which did indeed mention the disappearance of the children. It said teachers and school children descended and did not return. Search parties and excavations found no trace. After weeks, they were given up as dead. Apparently, the children were never found and were heard wailing from underground for several weeks in different parts of the catacombs. However, no one could locate where in the tunnels their wails were coming from. The article in the National Geographic, written by archaeologist William Griffith, who stated that the number of skeletons found in the catacombs was not actually 7,000 but far more. There were human bones to account for 30,000 people. It was a restaurant, quote, I rather think, for Atlantean descendants. That's somewhat disturbing, if you ask me. Wow, I even had trouble reading that one. Uh, you know, I did actually see apparent footage of these so-called giants. I think this was taken not in Malta, but nearby in Sardinia. It's one of those channels like Slapped Ham or Top 5 Unknowns. You guys know those kind of paranormal, creepy channels where they just uh, take footage from Reddit, people submit it, and they just post it on YouTube. Well, it was one of those channels a long time ago. I wish I knew the name of, otherwise, I would have posted it below, where it looked, these giants were filmed. It was kind of kind of dark. It was hard to see them, but they were all walking in this like very robotic motion, and they wore like white garb, and they had sandals, and I couldn't really see their faces. It was one of the creepiest, eeriest footages I've ever seen, and I totally believe it was real. And I believe it was filmed somewhere in Sardinia or one of those islands in the Mediterranean. All those islands are strange and mysterious. All right, guys, take it easy.